Here's Dr. Sky.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to your weekend. And from the Powerhouse Blowtorch, Talk Radio 77 WABC, broadcasting from the center of the universe, New York City, to the nation, the world, welcome to the Dr. Sky Experience. A show about the great mysteries from the realms of astronomy, space, aviation, weather, celebrity guests, and stories of American exceptionalism. We like to call it a theater of the mind of sorts. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, a show where you can actually learn something via critical thinking with dialogue. Reach out to us and to all those who work the midnight shift, live alone, drive the trucks, police, and first responders, hospital workers, etc. You can call us during our 2-hour show at 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-WABC. And while you're at it, why not download, if you haven't done it already, the WABC app. Tonight's adventure in hour number 1, we go to aviation. We'll be talking with a gentleman who knows so much about what it's like in aerial combat. What's it like to be a modern-day fighter pilot? What is an ace? We'll be talking about that with your questions and comments as we talk about the stories of American exceptionalism in hour number 2. And ladies and gentlemen, as we continue the Dr. Sky Experience, tonight's adventure, as I mentioned before, is very important to many of you out there, and we thank you for that. My email is drsky@wabcradio.com, and I'd be remiss if I didn't thank our helmsmen, both Tony and Bill, for steering us in the right direction. As we continue with our first guest in hour number 1, he's retired United States Air Force Colonel Cesar Rico Rodriguez, a 24-year veteran. He retired from the United States Air Force in 2006. His commission was back in 1981 through the Citadel Military College of South Carolina. The past commander of the 355th Mission Support Group at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Arizona, a seasoned command pilot with 3,100 hours, including 350 hours in Operation Desert Storm. And also in Iraqi freedom, and he's credited with downing 3 enemy fighters, 2 Iraqi MiG-23s and a Yugoslav MiG-29, as he is an F-15 driver and always will be. He now works for Raytheon Corporation in various roles, and he's our very special guest, not only to talk about what it's like to be in dogfights in modern military combat, but also the president and founder of Splash 3 Foundation, championing veteran and community charities from his location in Arizona, and the chief development officer for CLAW, Warbird National Course for Learning and for Winning. And with that, we say good morning to Colonel Cesar Rico Rodriguez. Good morning, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Steve. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, my friend, and through the power of WABC, we welcome you and thank you, along with all the other veterans that are listening, men and women, for their service to the United States of America. You know, I opened up the dialogue here with individuals talking with us later in the show, I'm sure. First of all, what's it like to be a modern-day fighter pilot? I mean, we hear so much about what's going on with Operation Epic Fury, and I did a little bio of you, of course, commissioned in 1981 through the great military school, the Citadel. What's it like being in the cockpit of an F-15C, which I understand is, a single-seat jet aircraft, still one of the most prolific in the Air Force inventory?
Well, I can tell you that, it's an honor to be given the opportunity to have trained as an Air Force pilot, and then to have moved up to the ranks of to be a fighter pilot. It doesn't happen by yourself. There's an amazing organization that the Air Force brings to the table to help you achieve the successes that you can achieve. And then, of course, you have the foundation of family and friends and community and peers that are all part of the process to help you, eventually get in. But the just being in the cockpit first can be a little bit overwhelming, and of course it was in the first many sorties. But once you start to become comfortable with the airplane and you start to become comfortable with the tactics and the procedures, then you can start to explore the entire envelope of the airplane, and that's when you're ready to go to war. And events like Red Flag and all the different training scenarios that we get to go through, they are all there to prepare you for that eventuality. Except in training, no one's shooting at you, so
exactly.
you have to cross your own hurdle.
Absolutely. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we're being joined by somebody. Again, we salute our men and women of the United States military, those that gave their lives, and also those that continue in service, and those of you who have received honorable discharges for the long duration that you were in. Who is he? It's retired United States Air Force Colonel Cesar Rico Rodriguez, 25-year veteran. And as we'd like to describe to the audience, I know this is very difficult for a person like myself on this side of the microphone who's never been in a situation like that. I don't know how I would handle somewhat the claustrophobia maybe for some in a combat, type situation or in a military aircraft. So what goes through your mind? I mean, talk about this if you're so, inclined to do. What's it like to be in that particular situation? I mean, your heart's going, you're obviously out there you have to have good vision. What's that experience like for people who never experienced that? They read about it, they see movies. Let me hear from you.
Yeah, it's wow. That's a great question because every sortie is an emotional roller coaster. There are good sorties and there are sorties where you go, oh my God, I'm glad I'm still alive. The environment of the cockpit is what I would call very friendly, in that many generations of fighter pilots and airplanes back from World War II all the way to the present have been part of the development of the cockpit. So the cockpit's more pilot friendly. It's able to bring into to the pilot sensors, weapon systems, radio communications. All of those things come into you in a way that it makes you appreciate what has happened before you, but also you get to be part of the next generation of platforms. So in the F-15C, we had an amazing history that ultimately delivered the F-15C, and the McDonnell Douglas Boeing team did a phenomenal job with the airplane, and then all the weapon systems and all the radar systems came together very nicely, to the point where the F-15C still has a record of 105 air-to-air kills to 0 losses.
Interesting. It's amazing. And still flying as what? The iteration, there's an actual beyond iteration, if you'll describe it, beyond the F-15E, the Strike Eagle. Isn't there a new F-15, kind of like a super F-15, if you'd be kind enough to describe that?
Yeah, the F-15EX is the next generation of the F-15 lineage. Amazing capability. Obviously, 20 years of development beyond the F-15C. So, the engine systems are better. The pilot or weapon system officer integration is better. And it's a completely new airplane that still shows that it's going to be dominating the skies when it's operationally fielded. And of course, the F-15E is the came before the EX, and again, an incredibly powerful platform, able to accomplish many of the missions that are happening around the world today.
And our tribute to all the men and women flying current missions as this continuing. We're hoping that, of course, we're hearing President Trump coming to maybe some conclusion here that will excite many people who don't like war. Nobody loves war. But as we continue to talk about Operation Epic Fury, this show dedicated not only to pilots like yourself, sir, but of course, all those in active duty situations. You're born in El Paso, Texas, and you spend a lot of your life where? In Puerto Rico. This is interesting. Talk about your early days and what got you the compulsion to move forward. And also, I understand you're also a successful Eagle Scout. I want to talk a little bit about what that means to many people out there if they're not even sure what an Eagle Scout is. Please continue.
Yeah, so my military career started as a young kid seeing my father wear the United States Army officer uniform for more than 23 years. And we got to travel around the world. My father is from Puerto Rico, and my mother is from Cuba. So my heritage is Latino, as we would say. Mm-hmm. And that culture really was the foundation that inspired me to pursue a life of service. There were so many unique opportunities as a young man growing up, and one of them was the opportunity to join the scouting community, and so I was able to be a Cub Scout, a Weevil Scout, and then eventually became an Eagle Scout. Less than 1% of the young men and women in today's world who enter into scouting become Eagle Scouts. And when you look at the who's who of America, when we talk about business, when we talk about military leadership, we talk about those who we want to follow in their footsteps. Less than 1% of them also have achieved the rank of Eagle Scout. So an incredibly honorable position for me. Great work and great mentors helped me to achieve my Eagle Scout position. And in today's world, I still find a way to give back to the young men and women who are committed to the scouting programs, and they're doing phenomenal work, and they will continue to be the backbone of the leadership needs of our industries, of our communities, everything.
A rare opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to speak with retired United States Air Force Colonel Cesar Rico Rodriguez. His time in military service. We're going to be talking a little bit more about what an ace is, and we'll get into a detailed description with you, ladies and gentlemen, of his 3 enemy kills, 2 Iraqi MiG-23s, a Yugoslav MiG-29 at a different time, as he's an F-15 driver forever, and now currently working responsibly with Raytheon Corporation. Going back, Colonel, to the Eagle Scout, if I'm correct, there's 21 merit badges that the person has to attain. And now they're saying, and I'm reading this, 2.75 million Eagle Scouts, I guess, to date. But in case the audience doesn't know, some famous Eagle Scouts, Neil Armstrong, who needs no introduction, Steven Spielberg. Isn't that amazing? I not that I'm finding that strange, but I think, wow, there's a guy that knows the stuff in the movie world as a genius. And even the late Charlie Kirk, if I'm correct, sir, plus so many others that we don't have time to mention. But the point I'm mentioning it, Colonel, is that for those out there that have children and those are aspiring to have children, what a great way to serve their country and learn about these different disciplines, as many of those who've come before. Your comment.
I agree wholeheartedly. The fact that the scouting community is for both young men and women is incredibly powerful. And it really is a sign that we are growing as a society to become stronger. And so I had the privilege just less than a month or two ago of officiating an Eagle Scout ceremony. Almost 45 young men and women achieved the rank of Eagle Scout. The merit badges that these young men and women are completing cover the full spectrum of citizenship, service to your community, your education, physical fitness. It's just amazing. And then each one of them has to complete a community service project. So as you can probably imagine, yes. When you listen to the short description of each one of their community service projects, you start to realize that where we are today in America and around the world, because scouting is a global organization. It's not just in the United States, but around the world. We are in such a good place for these young men and women who are achieving the rank of Eagle Scout to be our future leaders. And well, so as I always tell people, the future is in great hands.
Join us, ladies and gentlemen. Your questions and comments as the callers rule on this particular show, the Dr. Sky Experience. How do you get into the theater of the mind? It's 1-800-848-9222. We love the conversation mode of dialogue with critical thinking, and we're awaiting your conversation with retired United States Air Force Colonel Cesar Rico Rodriguez, a 25-year veteran, and also doing so many other things that I'm sure people out there paying it forward, wouldn't you say, Colonel? That's exactly the part that we'll talk about in just a few moments, too, correct?
I agree, yes. Service is not the calling of one, but it's the responsibility of many. And for me, paying it forward after so many years in uniform is what I feel I owe to my community, because they gave my family, they gave our airmen, they gave our soldiers, Marines, our sailors, our Coast Guardsmen. They've given them so much support. And at the right time, when you hang up your uniform, there's another opportunity to continue to serve. And that's how we feel like I've been able to do in my community.
Absolutely well said, sir. You know, ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to get a definition of something you may not be aware of. Colonel, please take the floor and describe to us what an ace is in the military jargon, and particularly those, of course, in the aviation world. Help us learn about what that is.
So an ace is an individual, and I say an individual because the current definition gives the acknowledgement that when you have achieved 5 air-to-air kills, you are given the title and the honor and the privilege to be recognized as an ace. Today, we only have 2 American aces still alive from the Vietnam era. The modern era has not produced an ace yet. There's still plenty of opportunities that are out there. Yes. But when I look at the accomplishments of each one of the aces, whether they originate the World War II all the way through the Vietnam era, and then those who have achieved air-to-air victories in the modern era, I consider this the ultimate team game, the team event, because there are so many fingerprints. The thousands and thousands of fingerprints on every mission represent family members. They represent your service partners. They represent your community partners, your industry teams, and the coalition in order to make the mission successful. So a successful mission, which translates into an air-to-air kill, which for an ace means 5 air-to-air kills, is a team event. It's not the actions of one.
Well said. And going back in the history of aviation here, you, of course, probably know this so much better than what I'm speaking about, and please add on to it if you'd like. The all-time highest-scoring fighter pilot, German Erich Hartmann, 352 kills. Now, Colonel, that's incredible. And they were using in those days, like BF-109s or regular propeller-driven aircraft, which had of course, less speed than what you have in modern-day jet fighters. But then you look at Steve Ritchie, both my brother Joe, of his website, by the way, a little plug out there to an aviation site that I'm sure you know about too, Colonel, photorecon.net, the latest and greatest, as many people describe it, in the world of aviation, from air shows, military aviation, etc. But Steve Ritchie, we knew him very well, and I don't know, can you qualify? I mean, did he pass now? Because he came here to Arizona so many times, and I have some funny stories, but I'm wondering what you know about, is he still with us, or do you know?
I don't think he is with us.
Okay.
The American Fighter Aces website has posted some information relative to his passing. Mm-hmm. But in so many other ways, Steve is with us because he has given us so many inspirational moments to reflect, not from the individual pilot perspective. Obviously, Steve was part of a crew in the F-4, and so that is a complete team effort in order to achieve the victories. And Chuck de Bellevue shares many of those with him. But, Steve gave us so much, and so what he gave us is alive and well, not only through the American Fighter Aces Association, but through all the different squadrons and organizations that he touched along the way to show us it's an attitude more than anything, but it's also an attitude that recognizes as I mentioned earlier, the fingerprints of thousands who are part of every sortie that is flown, and getting the airplane ready, getting the individual ready. It is truly a calling that many have to answer to make that happen.
Well, it's interesting, Colonel, that you describe him, because we had many encounters, and over the years, an interesting man, eclectic as I would describe him. For the audience, the first Air Force ace in the Vietnam War, flying that illustrious F-4 Phantom, Phantoms Forever. For those, of course, who were much of the inspired and flew the Phantom, they know that story well. But one quick story that I'd like to share with the audience. We were attending one of the air shows with the Collings Foundation that they had, of course, that completely restored F-4 Phantom. That was beautiful in his particular livery from the Triple Nickel Squadron. And we were talking to him before he flew, and he goes, "Hey, Sky," he goes, "I'm going to do something here." He goes, "I'm probably going to get in trouble for it." I go, "What's that?" He goes, "You'll see." So he comes down the deck, goes flying high, comes over and does a couple of passes. But on one of the passes, Colonel, and the audience I think would find this wild, those burners were lit, the orange-looking burners, and boy, he went so low, legally, over the control tower, he fired up every car alarm in that parking lot. And you know what, Colonel? I think they gave him hell for it, but he was smiles ear to ear. What a day. What an amazing guy.
Yeah, there's a variety of camps that are out there. I think I'm a super fan of the air show, but unfortunately I've also been a witness to tragedies that happen when we don't follow all the rules.
No, I understand.
And so I think there's a fine line, there's a balance, and sometimes we need to remember that there is a bigger calling than the individual. And so I'm 100% for a great air show, but I'm 110% for flight discipline, acknowledgement that
you say it so well.
that we have to do all the right things.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's exactly as you describe it. And here's something interesting. I've looked this up for our radio show. Many people may be wondering out there, are there any female aces? And this is what I found, Colonel. This is interesting. The first female ace was Russian Yekaterina Budanova. In her Yak-1 in World War II, she shot down 5 enemy aircraft at the time, so I never knew that. I mean, unless you want to, add to that. From the trivia file, I find that fascinating. Equally talented in the air, and this particular female pilot is, and I'm sure we're going to see many more, sadly, in future wars, but that's the definition of an ace, right? Or is there such a thing as an ace in a day? I think that's also somebody who scored 5 enemy kills in one day. That would be an unusual number, and I wonder who has that. That's amazing.
Well, I think the ace in the day is really more of a title given to a book. There's no such thing as a recognition ace in a day, but 5 is still the number, 5 air-to-air victories. It's interesting, as you mentioned, the female pilot. I had the privilege of serving with many women in our armed forces, and I can tell you that equally as qualified, every one of them has been professional. They've all done phenomenal work. Awesome. And in the air, none of us who strap on the jet and perform the mission, none of us care about the gender. We all care about getting the mission done. And so I'm a fan. Everybody who's a part of that squadron experience comes together in ways that the majority of the people can't understand it. But we all are, our wingmen. We are the wingmen to make sure that our flight lead gets home, and our wingmen are the wingmen to make sure that everybody gets home. And so, amazing talent. And just recently, there was a big celebration in Colorado Springs, recognizing many of the women in service, and that had to be a room that the whole world should have been paying attention to, because we have been blessed to have so many phenomenal women aviators, but more importantly, they're all fighter pilots, and they all get the job done. And
then speaking of female pilots and astronauts, of course, currently everybody is pretty much aware from all the great coverage that the Artemis II crew had with Christina Cook. She, of course, in case people don't know that, Colonel, has probably one of the longest in duration records of as a female spacewalker. And just look at how cool, calm, and collected she was among the other men pilots and, of course, crew members on board Artemis II. So you're right. We salute them, obviously not just picking on gender, but by their total ability to perform and do the job, and that's what it should matter, no matter what the race, color, or creed is. But I got to go back to something on a personal note. In your day of beginning, not to put you in a time capsule, but in those days, is it true that there were not a lot of Latino pilots or people in that particular role as there are and should be today, and also with African-American pilots and trainees for astronauts? Describe that.
Well, I think the Latino and the African-American pilots, there is an incredible history of phenomenal accomplishments, that date back all the way to World War II. The famous Tuskegee Airmen, performed admirably, and just now we are really starting to appreciate the many accomplishments that they made in aviation, and it's for me incredibly inspiring. But you're correct. If you just do purely the math, Latino pilots and African American pilots are underrepresented. It's not that that there's anything that's out there that says you can or you can't. I think it comes from what you want to, what's inspiring you to serve. And as I mentioned earlier, I was inspired by my father, but I didn't choose the Army. I chose Air Force.
Yes.
And it was interesting that late in my dad's and my relationships, he finally did confess to me that he says he wishes that he had gone Air Force, that had it not been for his eyesight. His initial desire was to fly airplanes. And so that tightened up our relationship as a father-son. But I think it's important to recognize that anybody who wants to be a pilot has the physical attributes, has the academic attributes, has the desire, needs to pursue their dream. There should not be anybody who says you can't do that because of the color of your skin. Absolutely. Or the accent in your voice, or whether you can dance or not. It's really if you want to do it, you should pursue it. And I'm a super fan, and I believe that as I talk to young men and women here in Tucson, Arizona, and I try to inspire them to pursue that career of aviation through the STEM and curriculums that are available to them.
Well, Colonel, in the next segment of hour number one, and to the audience out there, comments and questions, of course, in our theater of the mind, as we call it, to our special guest, retired United States Air Force Colonel Cesar Rico Rodriguez. He's joining us talking about not only his story of his service in the Air Force, we'll get into in the next segment, his downing of 3 enemy fighters, 2 Iraqi MiG-23s, a Yugoslav MiG-29, as an F-15 driver, as we've described, but equally important is your participation in our show. The contact number is always 1-800-848-9222. And for those of you that like numerals, no, if you like letters, 1-800-848-9222. And then, Colonel, we'll also get to the other part I think is so fascinating about the foundation that you are proud to be president and founder of, Splash 3 Foundation Incorporated, championing, and that is veteran and community charities from Arizona to all of our veterans who need help in these times, ladies and gentlemen. Look at all the military members that are going through PTSD and so many other situations out there. The focus, naturally, from this particular broadcaster behind the microphone, and also serving in our United States military for an extremely short time with an honorable discharge. Proud to be doing shows like this and sitting behind this microphone, sharing with you the experiences of many others, not in the sense of just me talking, but the great guests that we have to make up the Dr. Sky experience. 1-800-848-9222. We'll see you, ladies and gentlemen, on the other side of this break.
is the Dr. Sky Experience. Always look to the sky. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
Hi, this is legendary pilot Dick Rutan, who was first to fly nonstop around the world, and you are listening to the Dr. Sky Show.
If you can walk away from a landing, it's a good landing. If you can use your airplane the next day, it's called an outstanding landing. The voice of General Chuck Yeager. 31 minutes after the hour, ladies and gentlemen, you too can be part of our radio show as we continue to call it the Theater of the Mind, a show where you can simply learn something from our great guest that we have. And who's our great guest in hour number one? Retired United States Air Force Colonel Cesar Rico Rodriguez, 25-year veteran. He has some interesting stories to share with us, and we'll get into his foundation. But let's say this, the caller's rule is always on the Dr. Sky Experience. Let's say good morning on line number 3. Robert in Philadelphia, you're on with the Colonel. How are you?
Hi, Dr. Cates. As always, Dr. Sky, as always, it's wonderful to talk to you. And it's an honor to talk to Colonel Rodriguez. I was proud to be an A shopper on the F-15. I was not too far from you, Colonel. I was right up the road at Luke Air Force Base. I was with the 426 AMU, and that's the same base that the Triple Nickel in squadron that you referenced earlier, Dr. Sky, is based at as well.
Yes.
And I'm 18 years old, and I'm on the flight line, and I'm thinking, you know, I'm the luckiest man in the world to be here. You know what I mean? It was such an honor to work on that plane with its record. I mean, it was regrettable what happened just recently, but in 45 years of combat, it had never been shot down. And in my experience, every officer I ever really liked was a pilot. But why I'm calling is because I'm familiar with it, but my information is dated because I separated back in 87. Actually moved to St. Louis for a while and worked for McDonnell Douglas. But if you could expand on the targeting and the armaments capabilities of the F-15, because they're so impressive. And I would just love to listen to that. And thank you for taking my call, Dr. Sky, and thank you for your service, Colonel Rodriguez. And you guys have a great night, all right?
Well, Robert in Philadelphia, you said a lot, and thank you for what you've done to build F-15s so pilots like Colonel Rodriguez can fly them. How about that, Colonel? Interesting story from Robert.
It's a phenomenal story. So first I want to say, Robert, thank you for being a dedicated Eagle Keeper. Dr. Sky, Steve, the term Eagle Keeper is an incredibly one that I cherish immensely because all of the young men and women who took care of our jets across the full spectrum, whether it be fuel or weapons, whether it be electronics or combat systems, all of those young men and women who wore the Eagle Keeper patch have continued to set the pace for excellence on the flight line, and that's really why we are, and today's Air Force is as good as that Air Force is. Robert, to your point, the Eagle radar gave not only the pilot, but also gave everybody in the formation an incredible amount of situational awareness. I don't want to get into the ranges, but I can, as you can probably appreciate, extremely long range ability to locate, identify, and then ultimately target the hostile threat. It also gave us the ability to surgically identify where the friendlies and the foes were. And then the weapon systems that were being developed from the Sparrows to the current AMRAAMs, the weapon systems that allowed beyond visual range and multi-ship targeting, all of those kind of advantages is what a great team delivers to our Air Force every day. And in today's world, where you see the improvements that were made to the cockpit and the radar and the weapon systems, you see that carried over into the F-22 and the F-35. And so we've been blessed by the talent that the Eagle Keeper community has started with, and then ultimately transitioned to the current team of keepers of the Raptor and the F-35. And rest assured that those technology partners, whether it be Raytheon or Northrop Grumman, Boeing, all of those partners that are out there helping to make the platforms more lethal, more survivable, are 100% committed to the mission. So, Robert, thank you for your service. And you served in more capacities than most, because not only did you serve in uniform, but you also served with the Boeing team to help us produce the F-15 and the lineage that is now carried into the F-15EX.
Well said, Colonel. And Robert in Philadelphia, always a pleasure to listen to you about your stories relating to the topics on the Dr. Sky Experience. Let's go rapidly to line number 4. Another Robert, this time in North Carolina. Good morning, Robert. You're on with Colonel Rodriguez. How are you?
Good morning to Colonel and Steve. I'm an aerospace avionics technician. So my responsibility was to test anything that the company put in front of me as a subcontractor for the prime contractors. Anything from circuit boards to finished sub-assemblies that were going to be put into the frame of an aircraft, such as in the cockpit or somewhere else on the plane. It had to meet the specification, testing it, or it fails. And I could not use my test stamp. It was an honor and a privilege for me to get that test stamp, because I know that putting that test stamp on the travel log meant that it meets every spec that it's supposed to, and when it's put in the plane and goes on a mission, it's going to work. And some airmen and women are going to go out, complete their mission, and come home safe.
Well, Robert, thank you in North Carolina for your testimony here. Time, of course, I want the good colonel to respond. I wish we didn't have time constraints on everything, but according to the laws of physics, we do, and we accept it. Colonel, Robert says some very interesting things about supporting people like yourself that are flying these amazing warbirds.
Yes, and Robert, first of all, thank you, because your fingerprints, as I alluded to earlier in my conversation, yours are part of that fingerprint family that are on every airplane, on every weapon system, and ultimately are part of each mission that helps us to deliver success. And it's your level of discipline that you had in the tasks that you were given, that you ultimately were the wingman to our Eagle Keeper family, and then you are also the wingman to those of us who flew the jets. An incredibly demanding task that you had, because what we would do in the air could not be replicated on the ground. So whether we were pulling 9Gs or we were, screaming at 600 miles an hour or climbing to 55,000 feet, those aren't things that can be tested on the ground, but you had to have the confidence in your skill set. So thank you, Robert, for what you did. You ultimately brought home many warriors who might not have thought that they were coming home, and you ultimately delivered part of those successes.
Well, thank you, Robert in North Carolina. Very insightful and very much important to the mission. We now go to line number 3 and welcome Joe in New Jersey. You're on with Colonel Rodriguez. How are you, Joe? Oh.
My call, buddy, and thank you, Colonel, for your service to the country.
Thank you, Joe.
Oh, wow, I didn't know if I was still on. Sorry.
No, you're on. Go ahead, Joe. You didn't get a fair shake at answering your question other than the compliment. Go ahead, please.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Dr. Sky. Colonel, I was on the flight deck of the USS Saratoga, 81 to 87, and the hardest plane I ever hooked up, I was on the bow catapult, was the F-4 Phantoms. They were a pain in the neck to hook up. We had a bridle and everything to hook them up. They were hard. But the big daddy when I was in was the F-14 Tomcat. That was the big daddy of them all. And nobody understands it unless you're on the flight deck of a carrier to see the awesome power of the aircraft. They're rockets. They are rockets. And at night operations, in night ops, you could see the flames coming out of the afterburners. It is unbelievable sight, the power that we have. Thank God we got the power.
Joe, thank you for your service. Great insights and great stories. Colonel, the beat goes on here. Amazing callers and amazing people who did the other part of the job that never really got the same glory that so many others did, but they did their part, and it's important to hear your response.
Well, first of all, I salute Joe for his service, and thank you. I have many great friends who flew off the carrier, various carriers around the world, and they flew the F-4 as well as the F-14, and today they fly the F-18 and the F-35. And it's an amazing orchestration of professionalism that happens on board the deck. I've only had the privilege of seeing it just from the flight deck observation position, and I did get one COD launch on and off the airplane one time, but off the deck. But thank you. That is a tribute. What you have done and what continues to happen, that is what ultimately delivers air power around the world through the medium of phenomenal airplanes and men and women who fly those jets and fix them and launch them. So thank you, Joe.
Well, it's amazing, Colonel. The power of American Exceptionalism comes straight here and true from all these different individual callers. We got about 3 minutes before the next break, but I wanted you to describe, and it's unfair for me to ask it this way, but I'll stop talking, how and what happens in the cockpit for you when you're downing these MiG-23s, the Iraqis. I mean, this is a long path of a dogfight, or is it a short path? And in your case, what exactly happened in that short request for an answer?
It's a short amount of time from the minute you realize that you are face to face with the enemy. But when you think about the many years that it takes us to become proficient in our platform, the many exercises, the many debriefings and mission briefings, the many butt chewings, everything associated with growing a fighter pilot and the right attitude, you can't compare one to the other. But I can tell you that everything that I saw in the cockpit when I merged with my MiG-29 on the 19th of January in 1991, I saw it somewhere else, whether it was with the aggressors, whether it was fighting against the Top Gun instructors, whether it was fighting against the 422 organization. I saw it somewhere else, and they helped me to build that picture that ultimately gave me the ability to fly, fight, and win.
That's amazing. I imagine the G-forces, you're conditioned for this, obviously pressure suits, all the good things in there. But again, the heartbeat must be going, and boy, that must be a hell of a ride.
The training to be able to handle the G-forces is very intense, but their intensity has a variety of different formulas. We've been blessed to have the centrifuge and a lot of other capabilities to give us those attributes for when we're flying. But adrenaline is probably the biggest defense against loss of consciousness in the combat.
Yes, sir. And Colonel, with that, we unfortunately have to go, I should say, here in the world of radio and television. We'd love to continue. We will on the other side. If you're on the line like Tony in Clifton, Ron in New York City, we'll do our very best to get you on the air. As you folks rule the airwaves, the callers rule here on the Dr. Sky Experience. And then we'll have the Colonel explain to us his foundation, Splash 3 Foundation, and how you can be a part of it. More here on the Dr. Sky Experience. We like to call it Theater of the Mind, where people call in with critical thinking and with the dialogue. We will be right back.
This is the Dr. Sky Experience. Always look to the sky. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
My name is Richard Graham. I'm a retired colonel, flew the SR-71 for 8 years. The book I wrote on flying the SR-71 is available. I think you'll enjoy it. It takes you through a complete mission from start to finish. I enjoyed talking with Steve Cates. I look forward to the next time we can talk more about the SR-71 Blackbird. You're listening to the Dr. Sky Show right now.
Courage is doing what you're afraid to do. There can be no courage unless you're scared. A quote from a great and long time ago ace, Eddie Rickenbacker. 47 minutes after the hour, the calls continue to come in. Let's say good morning on line number 5 to Tony in Clifton. I haven't heard from you, Tony. How are you doing?
Hi, Dr. Sky. Hi, Colonel. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm so excited to speak with you. I'll make it quick. I just wanted to say that from Operation Epic Fury, we really saw so much of what our pilots were going through when the two pilots were when the plane was shot down and they were looking for the two pilots. And one of the things that crossed my mind is just from not being so close to this kind of event as we were, in Operation Epic Fury. The president really brought us and drew us into it, and
Exactly.
we were all excited about it. And so one of the concerns that I was thinking about is like in World War II and even in later wars, were the chances of being recovered when a plane, got shot down? Is technology more of an aid? In other words, they did their best to find the pilots, and they had protocols. And always I kept thinking about is, oh, my God, they're in Iran. What is going to happen to them after
You
all?
said it, right? Mm-hmm. Yes.
After all that we heard about, when what Iran did to those in Israel, it was pretty brutal. Tell me, what you think about that, and if you think it's changed, and what goes through your mind as a pilot, when you're in that situation, knowing about the enemy. It's worse than the scariest movie you can ever see, but bravery is a component, and then them finding you is the other piece of it,
Well, Tony, what I like before the colonel answers, this President, Donald John Trump, sends a whole flotilla, and that's a naval term, but no, an aviator term, will use a lot of aircraft, helicopters, and assets to go after one pilot. How important. It shows something, as opposed to various other individuals that didn't. But, Colonel, let me not take the thunder of what Tony's talking about. Please continue.
So let me share, Tony, thank you for your call. First of all, the embedded media concept came together in full force in Desert Storm, and that concept of bringing the battle space into the living room is not new. It's been around for a long, long time, and so I think there's an incredible value to giving our media partners the opportunity to tell a story, and we have to be very strict and disciplined about telling the story so as to, one, not compromise any of the tactics and procedures that are being used, but two, everyone who is part of the team, every American, everybody in the coalition, everybody deserves to know as much as they can. So I think the embedded media piece, it's not a new thing. It's been around for a long time.
Well, thank you, Tony and Clifton.
Technology has improved.
Yes. Sorry, we're short on time, Colonel. I just want to try to squeeze in something even more important. What could be more important than that? A brief description of the Splash 3 Foundation, if you'd be kind enough, and then I'd like to try to get to as many other callers before the clock runs out. Thank you.
Sure. So the Splash 3 Foundation is an approved 501c3. We've been in existence now for a little over 3 years. The board of directors is made up of 5 veterans. Our accomplishments to date is we have donated over $190,000 to charity partners that focus on veteran needs and the children's needs in Tucson and southern Arizona. We make this very possible through phenomenal tournament partners that help us out, golfers that come from around the country, volunteers, and then, of course, the ambassadors that are part of our Splash 3 Foundation and board of directors. Our website is www.splash3.com. You can see all of the details of our accomplishments. More importantly, one of the things that everybody needs to know is 100% of the funds that are donated to us through the website or through our partners or through the golf tournaments goes to the charity partners. We do not take a single penny on the back end, and everything goes to help our charity partners. So I am honored to be a part of that organization. There are many, as I indicated, many who have their fingerprints on the successes of our organization. And our next big event is on the 1st of May where we'll be hosting two amazing children's charities programs here in Southern Arizona. And on the 2nd of May, they will have all the money that we have raised, and they'll be putting it to work.
That's awesome. Splash3, the number 3.com, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see how many people we can get to the top of the hour as we close out hour number 1. Ron on line 3 in New York City. Good morning. How you doing? Ron, are you with us?
On 9/11, panic mode took hold and the rule book went out the window, and our defense forces were dispatched to come in from the mid part of the country over New York City looking for something. They didn't know what it was they were looking for. And add to that, they had no arms on board, even if they did find something to go after. Now, how in the world did that happen? And that must never, ever happen again. Now, if your guest doesn't care to comment on that, I fully understand why.
Totally.
Thank you. I'll listen on air. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron brings up an interesting point, maybe out of the realm of the conversation, but you got the floor, sir.
I will say that 9/11 did catch many flat-footed. I will also say, Ron, that I believe many of the airplanes that did launch in support of missions that flew over New York did have at least one air-to-air missile on board. So they had the ability to do part of the job, not the full job. We've learned a lot since 9/11. We're stronger for it, but it doesn't mean that we can rest on the accomplishments of those that have come before us. Everybody's got to plan for and prevent a future event similar to 9/11.
Let's squeeze in if we can go to line number 2. Joe in Phoenix, Arizona. Joe, you're on with the Colonel.
Hello. Just want to say what an honor it is to be on with Colonel Rodriguez this evening. Self-proclaimed F-15 nut from birth, I would say. I've loved the F-15 forever. Wanted to say that this is a great interview you're having tonight. I also wanted to notice, or let people know that the aircraft that he flew, 85114, if I'm not wrong, is now on display in the Smithsonian after it did its other service up with the 173rd in Oregon, correct, sir?
Joe, you're 100% correct. 114 is sitting peacefully at the Udve Hazy Center. She continues to serve as an inspiration for young men and women who are motivated to develop strong teamwork skills. She continues to serve as an inspiration for aviation enthusiasts through the STEM curriculum. And I can tell you that 114 will not just be sitting there parked. There's an amazing amount of energy that's still coming from 114. And I had the honor of flying her for both of my air-to-air kills in Desert Storm.
That's amazing. Thank you. On line 2, Joe in Phoenix. Let's go and see if we can get one more call as we close out hour 1. Line 4, Rudy in Richmond, Virginia. You've been patient. You got about a minute and a half, sir, but go ahead.
Colonel, I was a 6510 CRS at Edwards Air Force Base. I was able to wrench on 16s and 15s. Would you agree that the key to the success of the F-15 over these 50 years is the simplicity and the ease of maintenance of the PW power plants?
That's a loaded question, Rudy. I really appreciate the.
I didn't want to start a whole thing at this time.
It's all right, my
I'm
friend.
Just curious.
Nothing like PWF 100s, though, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Aim high, Colonel. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rudy.
It's amazing. Yes, isn't that interesting, Colonel? In 1 quick hour, it goes faster than the speed of light, as they say, because it is at the speed of light. But that's incredible. But again, thank you, sir. I hope we can meet sometime. I mean, I'm here in Arizona, so are you. And I want to mention this proudly. The gentleman who called in, Joe, in Phoenix, that's my own brother. And you know that, Colonel. And the reason I asked him to call in, he's kind of a little shy on stuff. But, hey, I want to promote his site to everybody listening out there, and I think you'll all love it. He and Dave Budd, his wingman, photorecon.net. And I think you, Colonel, would give it a high mark. If you would give it a review, I think you'd say outstanding, correct?
I agree wholeheartedly. And, Steve, thank you for the opportunity. I just want to share one last thing, that the strength of our military is our people. And so I thank everybody who supports the men and women who wear the uniform or are thinking of wearing the uniform. But remember, service is not just because you're wearing a uniform. Service comes in all capacities in our society, and we all are part of the team. And so I salute my community partners, my industry partners, and I ultimately salute those young men and women who are serving or are getting ready to choose to serve. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you for your time, Colonel. Hope we do it again, and you keep us updated on the evolution of the aircraft that you've flown once to fly again. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you as being part of the Dr. Sky experience. The callers rule here, 1-800-848-9222. And as we continue with hour number 2, a very surprise guest on the story of American exceptionalism that I think you will find not only controversial in some cases, but also most entertaining. So for all the Eagle keepers and Eagle drivers out there and those that are young enough to become Eagle Scouts, we provide a pathway because we say this proudly. Here's a show where you can learn something and continue to learn, learn, and learn. And thanks to our staff back there, Tony and Bill, who are they, the helmsmen, making sure the signal goes out strong, deep out into the cosmos. Hour number 2 is right around the corner on the Dr. Sky experience. Stay tuned.
Always look to the sky. The Dr. Sky experience is on the air. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
Welcome once again to your weekend out there as we talk with you, ladies and gentlemen. The show that talks with you and not at you, as we like to call it, a theater of the mind conversation with critical thinking, with dialogue, and obviously by your telling us, great guests. You can email me at drsky@wabcradio.com. My promise, we'll answer all of those, pro or con, as we get many positive emails, too. Tonight's adventure, as you've heard, we thank retired United States Air Force Colonel Cesar Rico Rodriguez for his experience not only as an F-15 driver, but all the callers that called in as people who are F-15 keepers. This is amazing. Eagle keepers, as they call them. But in hour number 2, here's something fascinating, ladies and gentlemen. We set the stage for more stories of American exceptionalism. And the taglines go out like this. What if America's drift toward collectivism was planned? Fabian Freeway, high road to socialism in the USA, exposes how Britain's Fabian Society exported its slow-motion revolution in America. Rose L. Martin traces its hidden networks from Turtle Bay salons to Washington offices, naming the groups and operatives who disguise socialist designs as, quote, liberal reform, backed by official records, rosters, and congressional data. The conversation goes with a special guest, Wayne Morrow. He's the CEO of the John Birch Society, a nonpartisan, that is, civics education organization that endorses the timeless principles of the Declaration of Independence, which proclaimed that our personal rights come from God and not from government. Setting the stage with deeper conversation, it's about a tale of 2 warnings. Orwell's 1984 comes true in Martin's Fabian Freeway. Good morning to you, Wayne Morrow. Thanks for being up here. Hopefully we're not keeping you up too much into the wee hours.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you? Thank you. Yes. Good morning.
I appreciate you. Yes, all of our guests on the East Coast. You know, it's funny to me because sometimes, somebody told me, why don't you just get guests on the West Coast? And I said, that's ludicrous. What about great guests on the East Coast? So thank you for being an East Coast guest. This is amazing.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, set the stage. I mean, on a serious note, there's a lot of controversy in many people's minds about the concept of the John Birch Society. And we're here to kind of squeeze out fact from fiction. But talk about this organization. Its start back in, January 9, 1958, as you know better. But you're the CEO of this organization. Talk to us a little bit about how this organization got started.
All right. Well, first of all, the name John Birch is named after a Christian missionary from Macon, Georgia. And he was doing missionary work during probably in the 40s, a little bit before 43, 44. And his role was as a Christian missionary to evangelize the Chinese. Of course, the U.S. was involved with fighting the Japanese, and a guy by the name of Colonel Jimmy Doolittle was shot down in the China territory because we attacked Tokyo. And the Chinese said, hey, there's Americans, Mr. Birch, and they're down here, they're lost. Could you navigate them out of here? So we actually found them and navigated them out. And because of that, they enlisted in John Birch into the U.S. Army as a special agent, intelligence officer, because he knew the language, he knew his way around. And basically, Jimmy Doolittle's group, the folks that were shot down, actually got into safety. And so because of his work, they gave him an Army Distinguished Service Medal because he really risked his life in a really tough territory with the Japanese at that time. But here's the interesting thing. After the war was over, he stayed on, and it was about 10 days after the war, the communist Chinese approached him out in the areas or the mountains where he was at, and they killed him. And he was, Mr. Welch, our founder, said he's the first victim, or I should say the casualty of the Cold War. So we took his name, John Birch, as a Christian missionary from Macon, Georgia, and he was the first one giving his life for his country, but also for God. And the interesting thing about him, that Mao Zedong was installed by Joseph Stalin. So his death, the death of John Birch, was secret for 50 years. They locked up his files for 50 years on how he was murdered because of
interesting.
That was the case. If that was the case, most Americans wouldn't be giving money to the Chinese, and now we have Red China, and now you know the rest of the story. Huh?
That's amazing. As you describe, a missionary, but then working with the OSS, which was what, Wayne? Is that the predecessor to the CIA under General Chennault? Right. That's amazing.
That's right. Exactly right. Yeah. So we took his namesake. Mr. Welch was the founder of the Birch Society. He was a wealthy businessman. He was I'm sure he was sugar babies and sugar daddies, and he was a candy manufacturer in Boston. And he was a brilliant man. I think he graduated at the University of North Carolina at 16 years old. But he was a real prodigy, and he said, look, I thought there's a real problem. I've been studying this. I traveled around in business, and he said, I see this feeling of network of communists and socialists encroaching in America. And the more study I do, the more I get concerned. So in 1958, in Indianapolis, he took some industrialists together and started the John Birch Society to expose what was going on, teaching Americanism to Americans again. And, of course, with that in mind, trying to, and he's done a good job, waken the Americans to the fact that there's this thing called conspiracy hard at work to destroy America.
Correct.
And that's how he all started. And because of that, of course, the conspirators, which we'll get into that, threw rocks and stones at him and said, you guys are crazy, you're tinfoil hat people, you don't know what you're talking about. And, of course, the first thing of a conspirator is to deny you exist, right?
You're exactly
right. So as we
right.
go through this conversation this evening, I'm going to go through the story with the Fabians, the CFR, and some words from them, because this has been going on for a long time. And I started almost 50 years ago when I was exposed to that, to the Vietnam era. I had to prove it to myself. And anybody's listening, hey, don't take my word for it. I give you some references and books and things that we've written. You do your own research. You're going to come to the same conclusion that it's hard at work as we speak today. I mean, look at what happened since 1950 to now. We're now heading in the right direction, right?
Absolutely. It's amazing. And our special guest, ladies and gentlemen, Wayne Morrow, the CEO of the John Birch Society. He's with us for this entire hour. Your questions and comments, very pertinent to what the world situation is now. Mm-hmm. Many tuning in always think or only think we talk about the realms of the sky, but the truth of the matter is American exceptionalism. Why not? That's important. Mm-hmm. It runs through my veins. And so many of you out there to keep the story strong and to keep it proud and to keep America higher up on the food chain in the entire world that we live in. But your questions and comments, 1-800-848-9222. But before we get going, Wayne Morrow, You are the CEO, as I've described, the John Birch Society. Give us your background, because you have a multifaceted and talented background, too.
Yeah.
Your turn to be on the soapbox. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, yeah, thank you. On the box, I jump here. Well, of course, I started as a research scientist for a large international company. Their research and all sorts of things involving the space program. I did that for a while, and I moved into. I was recruited into other organizations. I worked for Lockheed at that time, for about 4 years, working in the Space Missile Division. So I worked in the dark. I worked in Star Wars, as a matter of fact, in that part of that program for a while.
And not to cut you short, a group called the Skunk Works, which I know you can't tell us exactly what you did or share the blueprints with us via the computer. Right, I got it.
Can't do that, no. But, I talked to you off air some of the things, but, it's interesting.
Yes,
I got tired of being, it was you couldn't talk about what you did. But, it's interesting as now we'll go fast forward the United States today. As I mentioned to you, as we now fight against collectivism, there's no place to hide everybody. You can't hide in the woods. You can't go in the mountains. I mean, you can forget about that. And so we have phenomenal technology in our military and our government. And I just hope and pray we do it for good, not just to encapsulate and form all of us to be slaves to a system. And we certainly have phenomenal technology for a lot of smart people. And not all of it's used for bad, of course. But, I was exposed to some of that. But as God moves me through the time, and then I spent 28 years in medicine, and I did research in Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, and I spent time doing that for a good part of my career at grad school. I ended up in Boston for a while, and then I was approached by the John Birch Society to help them grow the organization. And I said, I really don't want to do that. They said, well, give it a try, and I did a try. That was 10 years ago. So
wow.
Back in airplanes ago, and here I am.
That's a good try there, my friend. That's amazing.
What a deal.
Yes, this is quite
I'm a crazy nerd, so I'm a crazy. But, I say that, I appreciate you asking me that, because I had to prove to myself what I was reading. Like, no, can't be true. Come on. Please, a conspiracy? No way. And the more I read, the more people I met along my journey, and coming out of it was very true. We have books available, and you mentioned them as a couple, and I want to talk about the Fabians, but a minute. But H.G. Wells was a Fabian. He wrote a book in 1928, The Open Conspiracy. Did you know that? In 1928. And he also
never knew that.
He also wrote a book called The New World Order. You can go on Amazon. You can buy that. It's a trilogy. And you can actually read that. He wrote about the New World Order and the Open Conspiracy back in the 20s. Imagine that, huh? This is old news, right?
This is interesting, Mr. Morrow. I just want to jump in with something. I had a guest, and I know he's since passed away, on a book that so many people in the conservative realm had asked me to read. And I would have read it if I wasn't a conservative, just because I like to read. The book entitled None Dare Call It Treason by John Stormer. And when I read that book and had the gentleman on there, it was just so amazing. And those copies of that book are very, I guess, not impossible to find. But the main, I guess, thesis of that is very similar to what's going on with what you're talking about with the John Birch Society. And that's something, if people also want to check out, try to find a copy of None Dare Call It Treason by John Stormer. Wow.
I'm glad you asked, because we reprinted it. It's available in our bookstore.
How about that? How convenient. And I never
so you can get
that.
all your copies you want.
Okay. Yeah. Then maybe I'll order one, because mine, I don't know where it went.
Well,
it went
I have a few
space.
more. I'll have a few more, Steve, that I'll give you that you may want to order, because they'll prove our case, And it's, we'll talk about that. Even talk about who the CFR members are in the current administration. That'll surprise you. But, let's talk about the Fabians for a minute, because it's important what's going on in the UK. I used to live in England. I was a president of a medical company before I came back in the States, and I got a chance to see 50-some countries in the world. So I thought communism and socialism at its worst and maybe finest. But the Fabians, they started in 1884, and Aldous Huxley was a Fabian. And the story goes like this. He met a young author, and he was telling him all about and get him interested in the Fabians. Fabians, by the way, was the name became Octavius Fabius, was a Roman general who was his method was slow and forceful, not fast but slow, and he defeated Hannibal.
Like the frog in the pot when you boil it.
You got it. Absolutely right. So they took his name. That's the name Fabian. So anyway, so he wrote all this information down, and he says, this is so compelling. I want to write a book about this, but I can't use my name. My name is Eric Blair. He said, they'll think I'm crazy. I'm a young author. I need to give a pen name. So he gave his pen name of George, and his last name was Orwell. So George Orwell wrote about the Fabians, and he called it 1984. And people always ask, why did he say 1984? Was it a random year?
Sure.
The answer is no, because the Fabians started in 1884, with George Bernard Shaw was one of them, believe it or not, and H.G. Wells, but George Bernard Shaw was one of the founders. And they said, with 100 years of existence, we're going to have world government. So that's why 1984 is titled 1984. So, you read Big Brother, The Ministry of Love, all the things you write in 1984, they call it Orwellian now. I know you know about that. It's very coming true because they're talking about exactly what they did in 1884. Very slow, progressive. Now, as we look at today in England, Keir Starmer is a Fabian. And Sadiq Khan was a chairman of the Fabians. He's the mayor of London. Okay.
Yes.
And all the Labour Party was born out of the Fabian movement. The London School of Economics was born out of the Fabian movement. Okay. And every prime minister, and there's 140 in Parliament who are members of the Fabians. So the Fabians we see in the UK now being destroyed to plan. They're destroying all their history, bringing in their world government. And so we're seeing, now I heard about this tonight, 50 or so people were incarcerated because of free speech, speaking out against what was going on in their country.
Ouch.
So that's what's going on.
Censorship.
Right.
Yeah, censorship around the corner, ladies and gentlemen. Wow.
Yes, that's shades of things to come. So I'm spending time with our friends in the UK exposing the Fabians. I have programs like this in England because they don't even know who the Fabians are. So we wrote a book, Rose Martin, in 1966 for the listeners called The Fabian Freeway. And the name of the book is The High Road to Socialism in the United States. And the reason why I say that, because back Woodrow Wilson days, after the war, World War I, Woodrow Wilson sent some people over to London to learn about the Fabians. It was called the Inquiry. And there were some British intelligence people there. There was an American intelligence. Walter Lippmann was one. Isaac Bowman was another one. And Colonel Edward Mandell House, which was Wilson's alter ego. And they spent time over there for, I don't know how long, 3, 4, 5, 6 days, whatever it is.
I hear you.
They came back to the United States, and they formed the Council on Foreign Relations in New York in 1921. We have a book called The Shadows of Power. It's in our bookstore. It talks about who the Council on Foreign Relations are. They control public policy, and they ingratiate themselves in many ways in our country, and I'll talk about that in a second. So that book's available in our bookstore.
No,
and
I want to give your website
as
jbs.org, but
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Morrow, what I want to do
JBS.
as the host here, I just want to jump in and give everybody a little bit of an inkling. I know you say it better, but I just want to give them a quick summation of some of the things that the organization stands for. Stopping the New World Order, as you're hearing, folks. Get the U.S. out of the United Nations, which has been along.
Yes.
And, of course, a powerful statement. I've seen it on billboards in Arizona and all
Yes.
over when I travel. Stop Agenda 2030. Get the U.S. out of the USMCA. What's the USMCA? Because I'm not educated enough to know what that acronym is.
That's the United States trade organizations between Canada and Mexico. That's what
Okay,
that's about.
thank you for qualifying it. Stop the globalist trade agenda. And how about this? The main tenet of what many on this radio station, of course, stand for with truth, justice, and the American way. Obey the Constitution. Rein in big government with nullification, end the Fed, as they say, as you say, stop mass migration, and restore election integrity. We hear this all day, but we don't hear it in a focal point like you're about to describe to us. So please continue.
Yeah, of course. So I'll talk about the Council on Foreign Relations. So David Rockefeller, this is in New York City, David Rockefeller was the chairman for quite some time. And in his book, again, David Rockefeller's memoirs in 2002, he writes on page 405, I'm going to read this there. Here you go. This is in his words. He says this: for more than a century, ideological extremists at the other end of the political spectrum have seized upon a well-publicized incident encountered by Castro that attacked the Rockefeller family in an inordinate claim we wield over American political economic institutions. Some even believe we're part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists and conspiring, there's that magic word again, with other things around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure, a one world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty and I'm proud of it.
Well, you say it so well. Our special guest, Wayne Morrow, he's the CEO, as I've mentioned many times before, of the John Birch Society, jbs.org. And, folks, this is your show. We always want to have, and what the listeners out there have to say, pro or con on subject matters that we talk about, mostly pro, I hope. But then again, we're ready for you either way. The contact number, 1-800-848-9222. And if you like letters instead of all numbers, 1-800-848-WABC. And if you haven't done it by now, download simply the WABC app. And we continue with the Dr. Sky Experience. As we talk about these subjects, American exceptionalism is near and dear to myself, and I'm sure it is to so many other people out there. Mm-hmm. And another thing, under the organization, you'll define it, I'm sure, and clarify it better. Save our children from public schools, enroll in what you call the Freedom Project Academy. And how about this, a novel idea? Support your local police and keep them independent. How about that? That sounds pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, as a matter of fact, the Birch Society has multiple components. We have our magazine called The New American. That's a magazine comes out once a month. And by the way, in May, Steve, we're going to have a special issue on the conspiracy. It's going to be 102 pages, and it's going to be pretty. And we haven't done one of those in a while, and I recommend anybody listening to call our number, 800-527-8721, or you should mention go to the new you can go to jbs.org to order a magazine. Mm-hmm. Okay. Hope you get more than one or two. That we made them pretty inexpensive. We want to really expose the conspiracy, and in that we talk about who the current CFR members are right now and the various organizations at the CFR. We talked about controls, and later on, if you like, I'd be happy to run through some of the names that may surprise you.
Well, hold that thought for a minute, because the caller's rule on this particular show, and I want to see as many people as we can get in their question, commentary, etc. Let's welcome on line number one, Al in Yonkers. You're on with Wayne Morrow of the John Birch Society. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Dr. Sky, Mr. Morrow, Wayne Morrow. Mr. Morrow and Dr. Sky, I just wanted to say, the John Birch Society, from what I recollect from reading, it probably came about post-HUAC, the Red Scare of the 50s. I'd say it's probably peaked its most stronger days, when they were really influential, was probably in 64 when Goldwater, was the standard bearer with the Republican nominee against LBJ. My question to you today is, where would you say John Birch Society, in what part of the country do you say the membership is most? Would it be Arizona area of the country?
Interesting question, Al. Mr. Morrow.
Yeah.
Interesting question on the geographic location.
It's not, of course. I would say it's not one place. I would say Texas. I would say greater New York and New Jersey.
Okay.
Interesting.
Believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Because they live behind enemy lines. California.
I love that comment.
And Florida. So where you are, that's, we have lots of members in those areas because they see what we've been talking about and they go, we have guests like We have friends who speak with us. I mean, Catherine Austin Fitz, as you pretty know, she's an economist called Solari, and she's certainly a supporter of it. Colonel Mike Flynn, General Mike Flynn.
Oh, yeah, we know him. Right.
And I've been to his offices, and he speaks very highly of the Birch Society, been to our meetings and been a speaker. Patrick Wood talks about AI, and he's going to be at our meeting in June. We have a leadership meeting in Salt Lake City. And so we can go on. And Steve Bannon, I mean, he's been on. So you guys have been right all along. Alex Jones, we've been on his show more than, oh my goodness. And he says, you guys?
Well, Wayne, let me stop you for a minute here. I want to give a little segue. You've done my job for me. You've done it well. Tomorrow's guest, as a very popular guest on the Dr. Sky Experience, is Patrick Wood, talking about technocracy and transhumanism.
Yeah,
I didn't know that the two of you knew each other, but. Let me go back to Al. I mean, Al, you have the floor here. You were bringing up some interesting points and questions about the geographic location. If you're with us, please continue for a moment.
Yeah, definitely, Doctor. Thank you. Yeah, I was surprised with New York. I know New York, a lot of people who would probably maybe be more closely aligned or associated with, like John Birch Society, would be somebody who would be identified as, like, conservative. So I figured when, I heard the John Birch Society membership, I figured it would be in Idaho, states like Arizona. So when the chairman there said it was in New York and all in Jersey, I was surprised, but not too surprised, because a lot of times people, will keep a low profile and they will belong to organizations that which is a fine organization. They just probably don't want to be identified with any group, and they keep their politics to themselves.
Well, Al, thanks for joining us. We're short on time here. Mr. Morrow will continue. We only have a few more minutes between up to the big hard break here, which is just coming up. Ladies and gentlemen, more comments and questions from you. That's why we have this radio show. 1-800-848-9222. If you like letters, it's 1-800-848-WABC, of course. And we ask you kindly, many people do it all the time, sign up for the WABC app, making it easier for you to take this radio show and all the other great hosts 24/7 here on this powerhouse radio station. I like to describe it. Some say it's definitely the way it should be said. From the powerhouse blowtorch, Talk Radio 77 WABC, from the center of the universe, New York City, to the nation, the world, and I'm sure even out into the cosmos. So how's that, Mr. Morrow? Positivity on American exceptionalism. That's what we talk about today.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Absolutely. We need to talk more about that.
Go ahead. We got about 2 minutes, and then we'll have to say, hold that thought, but not to the caller. So please continue for about 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'll do that. So, yes, one of the things that we've done all the years, and we do this more than ever now, we teach, as you mentioned, Americanism. We teach Americanism again, because it has not been taught any longer in the schools. So folks think we're a democracy, but we're a republic.
You bet.
Our rights come from God, not from the state. Our motto is limited government. So when people call us far right, Steve, that's wrong. Far rights are no government. Far left is all the isms, communism, socialism, fascism. But we're constitutional moderates. I believe in some form of government, but not total. So I'm a constitutional moderate. So far right, because our left media gives us the wrong name. So no, that far right's anarchy, which leads to totalitarianism, of course.
You bet, and we're coming up to that break. I hate to cut any guest short, but as you know in the business, this means a time when nobody would be heard. As we go to the hard break at the bottom of the hour, we're spending time and keeping him up into the early morning hours. Who's he? Wayne Morrow, the CEO of the John Birch Society, JBS.org, and we will continue on the other side with this powerhouse blowtorch that you listen to and you tell us you love. Talk Radio 77 WABC.
This is the Dr. Sky Experience. Always look to the sky. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
Hi, this is Barry Farber. You're listening to Steve Case. He is a man of many words, but much wisdom in those words. Always refuse to be a victim. Fight back legally and responsibly.
The goal of socialism is communism. So said Vladimir Lenin a long time ago. And if you're not familiar with who he is, you can simply Google him. 32 minutes after the hour, we continue with our special guest. All guests are special, but we're keeping him up early. Wayne Morrow, the CEO of the John Birch Society. Appreciate it, my friend. I mean, not to go overly overboard. You're a man of, lots of time, spending time with us, and I appreciate that time. Let's continue with the callers before we ask Mr. Morrow more about the John Birch Society. Let's say good morning on line 1 to John in New York. You've been patient. Good morning.
Well, good evening. Hello?
Hello. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, Tom. I'm in Miller Place, New York. My question is new listener, and I just have a question, and I have high regard, high respect for the John Birch Society. I just wanted to know what he thought of former President John F. Kennedy. By the way, I am former military.
Yes, sir.
And I just wanted to know what he thought of President JFK.
John in New York, thanks for your question. You bet.
Sure. Well, yes, I remember JFK. I also remember he was assassinated. All I know is that the man, near the end of his life, exposed what was going on. I think I think he was in a press conference, or it was a media, Steve, I think it was, where he said, "I know there's high places and there's organizations within this, and I don't want to have any part of this or part of it." I'm paraphrasing it, unfortunately. And when he said, "I know that there's these shadowy governments or something like that within there," and shortly after that, he was killed. So he was exposing the conspiracy. So I give him a lot of praise for that. But of course, they're not supposed to say that, so they did him in as well as his brother. But I think he found out there were some folks in high places around him. And overall, I'm ashamed. It's a pity. It's a tragedy that we will kill any U.S. president. But I think the man found out, exactly what was around him, and I think he was terminated. And so I'm sad about that. But we actually wrote an article about this, my friend, in the New American. Last year, we did a special issue on the assassination of JFK. So if you get a chance, you can call our office. You can get a copy of that.
John in New York, if you're still with us, I kind of cut you off there. I didn't mean to. If you're still with us, carry on.
My question is, why is it that he was the only one to not vote for the censure of JFK? Out of all they were very good friends, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
He voted to not kick out Joseph R. McCarthy out of our Congress.
Yeah.
He abstained. Very interesting.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, so I think he knew what was going on. I think that's why he was assassinated. It happens. One of our council members, Larry McDonald, a physician here in Georgia, he was actually murdered too in Flight 007. He was exposing the conspiracy in Congress, and they killed him as well.
How sad.
It happened.
John in New York, I appreciate you. Sorry the time doesn't continue. I know we'd like to have more of these opportunities. And we ask these guests to come back, so I hope you would do that, Mr. Wayne Morrow, in the future to discuss these subjects.
Yes.
Let's continue with the callers. As I mentioned before, they rule on this radio show. We go now to line number 2 to Alexi in Queens. Good morning, Alexi. You're on with Wayne Morrow.
Yes, good evening, gentlemen. Actually, good morning.
Yes.
If I am not mistaken, Mr. Morrow, if I may ask you in brief, I assume you are opposed to anything of a socialist nature, yes?
He said socialism, yes.
Right, if you're opposed to anything in the socialist nature, nature, if I'm correct.
Of course, yes. I actually lived in socialist countries and worked in them, and I watched the unfortunate abuse of citizens. All they wanted is a decent living, and they were put in tough places by their governments. And so I believe in free market enterprise. That's the United States is a phenomenal experiment, and unfortunately we're under attack right now. So our job is to expose it. Wake up Americans to keep American exceptionalism, as you mentioned.
And I hope it's never too late there, because let me say this, I'm a positive person, like many people out there, and that's why we do these shows, to bring awareness to the conversation. And hopefully, as we say in the beginning of our programs, to leave the radio show that you learned something, ladies and gentlemen. So, Alexei, you get the last word if you're still on there. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I'm still here. To your guest, I want to explain that briefly, that I escaped from a communist-held country in Eastern Europe. I believed in America. I've heard many things good about America, and I was a fanatic for America in my country, and I was taken in by the military and the police, and I was subject to some very cruel treatment, and I was told if I keep talking about America and how good it is, that I would be executed. I escaped, and they put a death warrant on me. I can never go back to my native country. I was so afraid. Yeah. But the point being that I am glad that there is an organization or people in it who oppose, because what they did in Europe, what the Soviets did in Eastern Europe, is beyond, and it's a moral and a human atrocity. And I'm
Alexei, you're so right. I mean, you're living proof of the whole situation. I mean, only those that have lived and endured. I had a friend from Germany who lived in East Germany, and he shared with me some horrible things. This young man now, he's in his 40s. And then when the wall came down, it was like unbelievable. They thought it would never, ever happen. But, Alexei, to your point, God bless you that you're here, and your testimony is heard very strongly here about the ills of communism and socialism. Mr. Morrow, a comment back, because we got many, many callers, as you would imagine, listening in around the nation, around the world.
Yes, well, I'm first of all, I'm happy he's here, and I couldn't agree with him anymore. I did live in the countries. I actually stayed and lived in the UK, but I appreciate what you said, because I meet people along our travels who share that, and they tell me they're very concerned about the direction the United States is going, because they see the same shades of creeping government and socialism, which leads to communism. They see that in the United States. And he said Americans are sleeping. And our job in the Birch Society is to wake people up. And if you want to spend time protecting the good life is really important. And so
right, America should not just be a 24-hour shopping center, though we love capitalism,
No.
At least I do.
No,
but the truth of the matter is, don't get too comfy and fat and ignore what's really going on behind the curtain, as people would say.
Right.
And I think that's my statement, but you say it so much better as the leader of an organization out there called the John Birch.
That's why I call it a conspiracy, Steve, because that's what it is. They deny its existence, but we know it exists, and that's the whole point. It's like the Wizard of Oz movie. Don't look behind the curtain, because we look at them, and this is exactly what's happening. But it's so apparent when you see it. And we teach constitutions on our website. We have a free course on there, the Bill of Rights. We remind Americans who we are, because they're not taught that any longer. That's why we have a Freedom Project Academy school. We teach Americanism again for young and old.
Well, you're a man of deep experience here, but I want to ask you, look, always the clock is what's running here, and I'm not afraid of the clock, but I certainly want everybody to get a chance to hear and ask their question as best as possible. So give us about, if you can, I know you're good at this, give us a better definition of New World Order, in case people are tuning in, excuse me, and they wonder, what the heck is a New World Order? Describe it from your standpoint with all the research you've done.
Yes. Well, New World Order, make it simple. It is total control of everything in your life. That's it. It's totalitarianism. So there is no more middle class. There is the elite or oligarchs, and then there's the serfs. Didn't you hear the story about WEF? You'll own nothing and be happy. Remember that?
Oh, I know that one. We talk about that with Patrick Wood. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. How in God's name can I own nothing and be happy?
Yeah, but they forgot there's a little part that they left off, or else.
Or else. Right. That's it.
So that's what it
no
is.
more
It's
private
total
property.
control.
Right. No
Nothing.
more private
Zero.
property.
No.
You're going to be taken. It's going to be taken. Oh, my God. Right.
You're a slave, Steve, to the system. That's what it is. So the oligarchs want to run. They want to play God, because we live in a spiritual battle here. This is an evil conspiracy. Mr. Welch said this is a Luciferian spiritual battle, because the people he just mentioned are evil, and they'll do horrific things. They killed millions of people.
Of course.
These
And not to be
people
on a soapbox from my side, one of the promos that we had, I was friends with Barry Farber, for those around the nation that don't know him, a very well, how do I say this, respected broadcaster in the world, in the New York metro area for many, many years. And what's the line that he said in the promo? Always refuse to be a victim. A victim is somebody, right, with no options, always fight back legally and responsibly. It sounds so sugar-coated.
Yes.
But that man, he did so much also to talk about American exceptionalism.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we spend time teaching Americans. And our website, we have a thing called the freedomindex.us. And I know that because of time, but we have the elections coming up. In that, the freedomindex.us, we have the voting record of every congressman and senator and every state legislator in the United States. So you can see in your pocket, in your phone, every voting record, and we pick out 6 constitutional-based bills, and every state legislator, senator, and House, as well as the U.S. Congress. You know, it's very interesting when people see that. Some don't even know who the legislators are. This is sad, and they don't even know who their congressman is or senator, and they are clueless to it. So our job is to educate them and get active and say, look, how do we get a constitutional-minded representative? Well, you have to do that in your knowledge of your own. I did want to say this. I go around the United States, I ask 2 questions, and I'll take your callers. I ask, when's the last time you read your state constitution? You know what the answer is, Steve? 0.
Never.
When's the last time you read your U.S. Constitution? Maybe 5%. So now the question becomes, how do you elect somebody if you don't know the rule book?
And when's the last time you performed the, as you stand in front of the flag, as we do, the participation, when we, of course, honored the flag with the Pledge of Allegiance? That's an interesting story. And we're going to have you go to bed soon, I understand. So more after this break. Wayne Morrow, respectfully, the CEO of the John Birch Society. The caller line is pretty filled, so we'll get to Mike in upstate New York, Dave in Pennsylvania, Ron in New Jersey, and magically at 1-800-848-9222, anybody else that wants to testify in the Theater of the Mind. We will be right back.
This is the Dr. Sky Experience. Always look to the sky. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
Hi, this is Hugh Downs. You're listening to Dr. Sky on aviation and space and life.
Socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money. An often repeated quote, and how true, from legendary Margaret Thatcher. 47 minutes after the hour. On this radio show, we always transverse the universe. A quick sky update for those of you that have tuned in for that and that only. We find out, ladies and gentlemen, switching gears, a big meteor shower is going to be taking place this next coming week. What are we talking about? On the night of the 21st of April, look to the northeast sky after midnight. If clear, a bright star Vega is there, and Lyrid meteors pour out of that region of the sky, better seen in darker skies. We continue now with our very special guest, a friend of the show, Wayne Morrow, CEO of the John Birch Society. And now let's continue with the many callers that we have. Let's say good morning on line number 3 to Mike. He's patient in upstate New York. How are you doing?
Good morning, Dr. Sky. Would Wayne please give us a little more clarity on the members of the current administration that might be members of the CFR? And do any of them participate or have a hold in the State Department, which would extend as a permanent job beyond the current elected administration's term? And I'd appreciate any clarity he could give us on that.
Thank you, Mike.
Sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, the CFR, you can go, the book we have, The Shadows of Power, as I mentioned, you can buy that book, and I can just give you, and of course, that magazine, the New American on the conspiracy, we actually have the list of the CFR dominants in think tanks, foundations, industry, public health. I mean, you get all the media, Time Magazine, New York Times, right down the list. But to answer your question, yes, National Security Council, Treasury Scott Bessette, he's a member of the CFR, and the Secretary of Defense, Peter Hegseth, is a member of the CFR. Even Tulsi Gabbard is a member of the CFR, Director of Intelligence. In the State Department, you have Christopher Landau. He's a Deputy Secretary. He's a member of it, and on we go. And Monica Crowley, who's the Chief Protocol of the United States, and on it goes. So, yes, all through the course of history, the CFR has purposely placed, regardless of the president, into those areas of public policy. That's how they steer. That's how they steer, regardless if it's Obama, Biden. It's irrelevant. That's how they steer their public policy in the shadows.
Well, thank you, Mike, in upstate New York. Let's continue with our callers here. I'm trying to get everybody on the air here that has opinions and conversational points. Dave is on the line from Pennsylvania. Good morning, Dave. You're on with Wayne Morrow.
Sir, we used to have a bumper sticker that said "Say no to the New World Order." I joined the John Birch Society in 1979, 1980 area. And
phenomenal.
Wow, you mentioned Larry McDonald. I had the great pleasure of introducing him as our speaker about 2 weeks before the Russians shut down 007. Wow. Amazing.
Yes.
And
well, I'm glad you're a member. Make sure you get the magazine on the conspiracy. It comes out in another 2 weeks. It's 102 pages. Yeah.
I'm definitely going to get that. I'm definitely going to get a couple of them. And
well, Dave, I appreciate you. No, it's interesting, Dave. You have a final comment? We'll move forward from there. Go ahead.
Yes, you blew my mind there when you said Pete Hegseth was a member of the CFR. I got to ask you, what about Mr. Trump? Do you think he's really America first, or is he involved?
He's not on the list. No, he's not on the list.
Awesome. Dave in Pennsylvania, thanks. A short but informative question and comment session. Line number 4, we say good morning to Ron in New Jersey. You've been patient. Good morning. How are you doing?
Hey, guys. How you doing tonight?
Doing great.
Great. I just want to thank you for what you do, Wayne. I think the John Birch Society is amazing. I've known about you guys for some time now, and I definitely feel like you're fighting the good fight, and we're pushing uphill for whatever's coming our way in 2030. You mentioned Agenda's 2030, and I saw COVID as something that was kind of like part of the quickening, and the amount of people who are divided along party lines don't get the point that this is going to affect all of us. It doesn't matter if you're on the left or on the right. And I try to meet people and tell them what I think is happening and what I see going on. But when you're ideologically aligned, you could be a little blind to those things sometimes. Let's take COVID, for example. You know, if you wore a mask, you were definitely someone who was on the left. If you took ivermectin and didn't want to take the vax, you were definitely someone who was more on the right. And it was amazing to me, the people who were not able to see, you know, the people who brought this on, let's say, like Fauci, who was responsible for AIDS, and the left hated him back in the day, back in the 80s. And here he is now, a hero of the left. And as we approach 2030, I just, you know, after what I've seen, I think the last caller asked you, what about Trump? And I think what he meant was not necessarily in relation to CFR, but is he America first? Because he seemed like someone got us out of the World Health Organization, closed the borders. You know, he's doing some good things against what we would call, say, the deep state. But now you look at him with getting into this war. I didn't want this war. And then, you know, like what he did with Bayer and glyphosate with Monsanto, like letting that go through. And now with, you know, renewing Pfizer, I'm like, who is this guy? This is not what I voted for. And I'm like, what hope do we have as we get close to 2030? How do you see this playing out?
Well, Ron, I appreciate it. You brought up many interesting subjects and opinions. As we close out the show, we'll continue here. Wayne Morrow, let's continue on with response, and then in the last couple of minutes, talk more about how people can get in touch with you. And again, I appreciate your time for staying up with us.
No problem. Thanks. No problem. It's enjoyable because it's important work. So the answer to your question is all presidents, especially President Trump is one, you know, as I mentioned, there are some bad actors in his staff. I mean, I mentioned a few, and they steer him around. And, you know, he's a businessman, and he's not naive, but he gets steered around. He gets bad advice. And I think that's what you see. That's a result of it all. He doesn't do things perfectly. I think we both agree with that. but he's a heck of a lot better than the last couple presidents, I can tell you that. But yes, he gets steered around. That's why I was mentioning about be aware of the CFR. They're the shadow government, and they're always there developing policy. But I mentioned about the Fabians, the same thing. They're always there for a longest time, since the 20s. And so when you get the book and you get the magazine, you can see the laundry list of people and the members of the Council on Foreign Relations. Not all of them, by the way, are globalist, nasty people. But when you see some of the names, they're exposed to what's going on developing the world government. That's their goal, world government.
Well, Wayne, you bring it up interesting. So this is not a homework assignment. Nobody has to do anything. But we would hope in the state of the conditions around the world today where there's insecurity about what the future is going to bring, and in the opinion of many of the callers tonight, they seem like they've given you a rousing round of support, at least in the sense of agreeing with many of these tenets. But I have one that we only have a few more minutes, always here, before the top of the hour. Support your local police and keep them independent. I mean, look at how much pressure. I did work with the sheriff's office for 22 years. I'm biased, but the truth of the matter is not so much what I have to say. Look at the disgrace that's going on around the nation as far as treating the police officers. Look, if any police officer is beating somebody senseless for no legal reason, and you shouldn't have to beat anybody up anyway, it's just that that's an important tenet to me, supporting our law enforcement. As many people even say on this radio station, if you're under arrest, you're under arrest. So stop fighting and just, doing this crazy thing in the street. But I say it so simply. What say you as we close out the show on support your local police? Very important subject.
Yes, well, part of the tenets of the Communist Manifesto is a nationalized police force, and our job is to keep them local, responsible to the local citizens.
Yep.
That's what it's all about. We know that's one of the planks, and we do support them, and we do educate them remind them of their duties, and we give them, we actually align with manufacturers of product for the police department, small rural ones especially, who are undervalued and believe it or not, they don't have very many funds. So we help them, but we encourage them to stay independent from federal pressures. And that's important. And I'm glad you brought that up. It's a non-for-profit called Support Your Local Police. We have that for that reason, because Mr. Welch said we need to be careful because the nationalized police force is exactly what we're trying to stop. So, yes, we spend time doing that, as well as educate people on the Constitution to elect constitutional-minded people, and also educate our kids to read and write cursive and read books. So we believe that. And so we do all those basic Americanist things to keep people on track. So I want to tell you, I'm hopeful because when Americans see things get now pretty bad, now they actually wake up and say, this doesn't happen by mistake. This is all the plan. So there's no conspiracy theorists. We prove them all right. They are a conspiracy. I need more theories. We've been proving them all right. Time has shown this to be correct. And our job is to get Americans who listen tonight active in making sure that they vote properly, but get an active role in the community, exposing what we hear and what you learned tonight. It's really
That's exactly right. So we're hoping as we conclude this radio show, 2 hours on the subject more of American exceptionalism and honoring our military, something I'm proud to do, and certainly with no apology at all, because it continues in force. So many people, not only on this station, believe in American exceptionalism and the way that we're not headed in certain areas. So the interesting part is jbs.org if you want to learn more about Mr. Wayne Morrow and his role as CEO of the John Birch Society. Please do that. And as I like to say to people, and other shows that I've done for years on the Constitution, Second Amendment issues, and such, maybe a little revelation to people who think we only talk about what's out there in the vast universe. We are a constitutional republic, Mr. Morrow. You know that so well.
Yes,
at least
sir.
we should say that. And I haven't seen too much of the Pledge of Allegiance out there. I see it sometimes, but I don't see it enough. And that's exactly something that I think would hopefully instill in our children, in our schools, and again, supporting our law enforcement, and never nationalize the police force, as you're saying so appropriately and so correctly, and that we all can live in this nation, no matter what our race, color, or creed, and do the thing that, again, the Constitution was formed to do, to give us life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Amen.
Thank you, my friend. Look forward to talking to you in the future, and hopefully you'll update us, and stay in touch with me. Tomorrow night, 2 hours with Patrick Wood on technocracy, transhumanism, as he talks about great subject matter. Didn't know you two were friends, but now we know it, and I thank you again.
Absolutely.
Now we can say good morning to you, as you're probably ready to jump in the sack, and rightfully so, for sleep. Have a good morning.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate the time. I really do. Thank you.
You bet, sir.